Ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed a privilege, a unique privilege for me to be addressing such a large gathering here. Thank you very much for having invited me. And especially so at this beautiful, most beautiful setting of this wonderful town of yours. The subject that I am going to speak on is about the world. And I see the world in turmoil, and I am going to define why I think the world is in turmoil, and then I will try to give solutions which I think are the solutions to correct whatever path the world has taken. The causes of this turmoil. Why is there turmoil in the world? And I can identify 4 major areas because of which we have such conflict in the world, between states, within states. And these 4 areas to my mind are firstly political disputes, secondly economic or developmental inequities, and I call them inequities between states, interstate inequities, that is the big gap of development between the developing countries and the developed countries. And then within the states, the big gap between the rich and the poor, the haves and have-nots. These are the economic inequities of the world. Then there is subnationalism, or I call them ethnic divergences, which are pulling pluralistic societies apart. In most of the developing countries are pluralistic in nature, and these within themselves there are forces, centrifugal forces, pulling them apart. And the last element which causes human deprivation, leads to crime and could lead to terrorism, is the denial of basic human necessities of food, water and energy to masses, to the people. These issues, I feel, ladies and gentlemen, are the causes, the main causes of conflict between states, of conflict within states, and also of crime through human deprivation, and crime which can also lead to terrorism. Terrorism is the tool used by nations, groups, individuals which are affected by the issues that I spoke of to promote their causes. Gentlemen, that while terrorism is the symptom, it is the 4 issues that I have spoken of mainly. There are other issues also, which are the real causes which lead to terrorism. Now I have spoken about the causes, I must speak about the symptom now, because it is serious, and we have, over these years, we are seeing all these symptoms, especially in South Asia. We have to adopt a 3-pronged strategy, ladies and gentlemen, and in that, the 3-pronged strategy is military, political, socio-economic. The political aspect is most important today, and I have spoken about the blunder in the past, but we are trying to correct that blunder now. It's better late than never. The point that I want to make is this must be done from a position of strength. It cannot be from a position of weakness. And therefore, how do you have the strength? You have sent in forces, you need more maybe. And therefore you need to raise more Afghan National Army, and you need to raise Lashkars. Lashkars are militias of the tribes, of the Pashtun tribes. Those identifying those who do not have ideological equation with the Taliban. And there were many, let me tell you. If we showed resolve, if they know that we are there to support and to stay up to the end to win, there will be people who will be there. But if they see that there is no resolve and everyone is prepared to quit, I can assure you, those who want to join will never join. So therefore, we need to show that resolve, create Lashkars, and that will add to the force available to fight the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. The effect that we want to create in Afghanistan is really to defeat Al-Qaeda, to dominate the Taliban, and to place a legitimate government in Afghanistan. In Pakistan, ladies and gentlemen, we need to sustain operations in the tribal agencies, and we must also move against extremism in our society. There is work to be done in India also, and I would like to say that first of all we must resolve the Kashmir dispute, because that is the source which creates extremist organizations and creates disharmony. We must also, the Indian government itself must address this issue of alienation of the Muslim population. And lastly, also they need to stop interference in Pakistan through Afghanistan, because that creates disharmony within our efforts to fight terrorism. I will conclude by saying we can win, we must win. We must show resolve and we must show commitment, because any lack of it certainly discourages and scares prospective supporters against terrorism. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, well, this is the part of the evening where we get to get some questions from the audience and have a good stack. Thank you all for your submissions. Probably won't be able to get through all of them, as you might imagine, but many of them fall into similar categories, so I look forward to your answers. One of the first ones that I thought I would start with was how do you perceive Presidents Bush and Obama and their reactions to the situation in the Middle East? Maybe contrast their foreign policies. Just thought I'd start with an easy one.
Well, frankly, I'm not competing for office with the Democrats or the Republicans. So therefore, I wouldn't like to get involved in this fray. But I would like to tell this audience about I don't know President Obama, frankly. All that I would like to say is that he has started from a very high pedestal, and when you start from a very high pedestal, it is that much more difficult to rise even higher. So that is what, I wish him good luck. I just wish him good luck. On President Bush, I would like to say that he's been a friend. He's been a very good friend. He's been a very sincere friend. I know him to be a very sincere man. I know him to be a very upfront, straight talker. And that's what I like in him. Frankly, I did a lot of straight talking with him, and he did a lot of straight talking with me, and I liked this equation. And I like a person who listens straight and talks straight, and an extremely sincere man, and I cherish my friendship with him. There is no doubt.
Okay. This next question actually